He's David Carr. You can see him throughout NFL Network's Super Bowl week coverage beginning Monday, February 3rd, the former number one overall pick joining us on the program. What was the craziest thing in your contract that you were forbidden to do when you were playing?
Houston was not drive a tractor. And I had thought to myself, I would never see a reason to be on a tractor. I grew up in the Central Valley, but I'm glad you actually took the time to define auger, because I was sitting here and I had no idea what that was. So that sounds fun to me. I did ice fish in Minnesota at the Super Bowl one year with Lindsey Rhodes on the NFL Network, and that was actually a blast. So enjoy your time today. That sounds fun.
Well, thank you. Thank you, David. That's the only reason I wanted to have you on, is find out if there was anything in your contract you weren't allowed to do.
Yeah, just a tractor.
So was it written that you couldn't drive a tractor?
There were several things in there that were very strange. And I think eventually the NFL finally figured out that guys are going to do kind of strange things in the offseason. These guys have a little bit extra money. They have a lot of free time. They're kids. So they eventually went to like a blanket statement. If you get hurt doing anything outside of playing football, then that's it. And so that's kind of eventually what they went to.
All right, let me start with the underdogs on Saturday. How do the Texans beat the Chiefs?
Historically, to beat Kansas City, you play shell coverage and you get after them with their front. When you watch them play a couple weeks ago, Pat really was able to make some runs with his legs. Didn't really have much, down the field. So they had some opportunities to hit some plays. They missed them, but he was able to break down the defense with his legs. And so I think that was really, if you're the Texans, you got to feel pretty good about that. They held Josh Allen to 9 completions. So this Texans defense is not, it's not as bad as people might think. You look at their team in general and you think, oh, well, they've taken a step back. Maybe CJ's not playing as well. Really, they kind of put too much on his plate. When I look at it, how they played offensive football last year, it was through the run game and play action pass, and Bobby Slowick did a good job mixing that up and kind of keeping it balanced. And when I watched them the first half last week, it was way too much drop back pass. I mean, it's too much. And fortunately for them, they had the lead in the second half, and they said, well, we're going to run the ball. And they ran the offense they should have been running, the entire game and really the entire year, and they actually played better. So hopefully that kind of woke them up a little bit. Like, we have a pretty good defense. We can keep everything in front of us. You got to kind of withstand the first 15 plays of what the Chiefs do. That's how they've won games this year. Honestly, they've got out on people, and then you give Andy Reid, a week, and those numbers kind of speak. I think he's 21-4 since Philly with an off week. So if you can withstand that initial surge and not let them get 14 or 21 points on you, then you got a chance, man. But you got to play balanced. You have to keep everything in front of you on defense. You got to get after Pat. And then you have to be efficient on offense, and that means not dropping back to pass and putting your quarterback in harm's way. I mean, CJ made a huge play the other day to kind of spark them off of like a fumbled snap, but let's not rely on that stuff. You got Joe Mixon for a reason. Let's use him.
It's weird to say this. It feels like the Lions are under more pressure than the Chiefs. Does that feel?
That's a good point.
Is that fair to say?
Well, I think stylistically, when you look at what Jaden does and what Cliff likes to do on offense, they use the quarterback in the run game so well, and he breaks the defense down. And when you play man coverage like Aaron Glenn, my former teammate in Houston, he's done a great job. I mean, he's aggressive. He trusts his corners, but they play a lot of man coverage. And if you're going to do that, you got to be aware of the quarterback, because if you don't put anybody on him, he's going to give you a problem. And all it takes is a couple of big plays, especially a playoff game, to spark a team, especially a team that's in an underdog role. Like, don't let the quarterback run 3 or 4 times and spark this entire team to give them hope. So I would agree with you. I think they're under a lot more pressure just from a style standpoint. So Aaron's going to have to do some pretty unique things, because that offense can give you trouble. It's not just a historically run the ball and the quarterback's just bought a ticket and he's watching the running back run. He's involved in the run game. So I think that's going to keep Aaron up a couple nights this week, trying to figure out if we got everything covered from a defensive perspective.
And part of the reason why I brought up the pressure on the Lions is so close last year. They're going to lose their coordinators, it feels like. Now, I know they have everybody signed up here for the next few years, but it just feels like this is the evolution. This is, you lost in the title game. Now you're supposed to be going to the Super Bowl. And, like San Francisco, the same thing. You get that up, but that window of opportunity can close pretty quickly. Sunday, how did the Rams beat the Eagles?
Well, the Rams are were they 10-2 when Stafford starts a game this year? So they did like the reverse of what teams like, the Dolphins or the Saints, or like any of these teams that got injury plagued and their entire rosters on IR. They did the reverse. They kind of started hurt and they built up and kind of got everybody back. And defensively, that's I think the best part about the Rams, because they have Jared Verse. I watched him at Florida State, and I just remember taking notes on him from watching him for the draft. I'm like, this guy's a grown man already, and he's very, very football savvy. And all those guys across the board they use a lot of line stunts and movement. They even stole some stuff from Aaron Glenn last week to kind of get pressure on Minnesota and kind of disrupt Sam. But they're playing great on defense, and then offensively they're more balanced. But the crazy contrast in just even that last game, like this is why I think the Rams have a real chance, is they tried to pressure Stafford just like Sam Darnold was under pressure. And Matt played great. He got the ball in his hand. He's effective. He got the ball where it had to be. And the guy can still play at a high level. So I'm not going to count them out. Experience matters, especially on the road. Philly's going to be a tough out. I mean, because it's won and lost in the trenches. That's the one thing. I watched. Just obviously the Saints go to Dallas and just run all over the Cowboys, and then the next week they played Philly and they ran into a brick wall. So I think that's the one equalizer is Vic Fangio's defensive line is really, really solid, and they do a good job. And Kyron has really tried to take the load as far as the Rams' offense, as far as giving them positive yardage. And if they can stop the run there and put it in Matt's hands, then he's going to have to make 25 great throws to beat that team. So it's a challenge, but their offense in Philly isn't exactly exciting everyone as far as away from Saquon Barkley. I mean, A.J. Brown. Look, when my wife brings a book somewhere, she's not interested. Okay, so when A.J. Brown's on the sideline reading a book, I mean, there's some issues. So we'll see, man. If they can make it one-dimensional, they got a chance.
Would that bother you as a teammate if you were the starting quarterback and you look over and one of your receivers is reading a book?
Well, I mean, they have tablets. You can look at the plays with me. We can sit here and figure out how we can get you space. I understand. When I saw it, I get it, because guys all have different ways to get themselves locked in. Mentally, football is hard enough, right? So you have to find a way to. From a wide receiver standpoint, stay locked in, because I would rather him do that than make a scene on the sideline and scream at everybody because he's not getting the ball. I mean, we've seen that before too. So, yeah, it's a little strange. The best part was when they asked Jalen Hurts about it, and he was like, "I've never even seen him read." Well, all right, there might be a little beef there still. I don't know.
He's David Carr, NFL Network analyst. Why are the Buffalo Bills an underdog? It's scheme again. When you look at what Baltimore was able to do to Pittsburgh, I thought that was going to be a harder challenge for how they want to run the ball. Kind of in their zone runs with the 3-down defensive front, with those outside linebackers that can kind of do a lot of different things. I thought that would be a tougher look for them. But from a scheme standpoint, this is a scary matchup for Buffalo, because Lamar was already dangerous enough, but now you have Derrick Henry, who, when he was in Tennessee, he faced more loaded boxes than anybody in history. There's one extra guy down there because there just has to be. And if you don't have a conscious effort to stop him with extra hats, and he can take 2 or 3 steps and get some speed going, it's hard to stop him, with the size that he has. And so, but now you have this offensive system that, Lamar's out pocket passing pocket passers. And so, okay, he's going to do that on top of Derrick Henry's in the backfield. And now it's not just like him, in the pistol running downhill. They got him next to him in the shotgun, which they kind of struggled with early in the year. But they've found a real comfort level with him. And so for Buffalo at home, it's still difficult, because they want to play shell. They want to play shell defense. They want to rush 4. They want to keep everything in front of them. And that sounds great if you're facing a team that wants to take big shots, and you kind of want to get the ball back and put it in Josh's hands. But this team will just pound you. They have no problem doing that. And Lamar's smart when he runs, doesn't take a lot of big shots. So Buffalo's going to have to score with him. And Josh doesn't necessarily have Derrick Henry next to him, so it's going to have to be, he's going to have to throw
throw the cape on every once in a while and make these superhero plays. And we've seen that go, two different ways, at times. So he's been better this year. He's been more efficient. He's throwing the ball well, but he's going to have to play a great game to beat Baltimore.
We as fans get caught up when we see snow or where we see a player's breath that it's so cold there. How much of an effect do you think it really has that we might see snow in Philadelphia, maybe in Buffalo, cold weather in Kansas City? So as a former quarterback, how much is that or should that affect you?
Yeah, cold isn't fun, but guys nowadays, like I talked to Derek a couple of years ago about this. He went up to Pittsburgh, played a great game, threw like 400 yards. I'm like, dude, were you not cold? He's like, man, I got a triathlon suit on under here. I'm like, what? And now the secret's out for me. Like I used to just have to deal with it. We had cotton shirts and we were freezing at all times, so I hated it. And I don't like to play in it. Now I will say guys move slower, so really, you think you can run the ball well, and you can, and guys don't want to really tackle guys like Derrick Henry and stuff. But I think you can actually, if it's a little snowy out there, you can throw the ball. I think more than people think. I actually had Brett Favre actually was the one that told me that. He's like, hey, when it's snowing out there, DBs don't want to move. There's an element to that, but it's still uncomfortable, man. It's not fun. I mean, it's beautiful on TV, and that's actually when my wife stops reading a book, it's when it's snowing on the field. So she'll watch those games. So hopefully we get a little bit of that.
If you were Deion Sanders and you were offered the Cowboys job, what would you do?
Oh, let's go. I mean, why not? It's the Dallas Cowboys. So I don't necessarily know that that's the best thing, but I think he does a lot of things that could probably rub you the wrong way. But I think what he does is he puts a good staff around him. Like he reminds me of Dan Campbell in that way because he is smart enough to understand that he can't micromanage everything. He's the leader. He's going to be the emotional guy. And honestly, that could do worse in Dallas than having someone with some energy and a guy that can kind of bring some life to that locker room because he's going to put great coaches around him. And he's going to do what he can to motivate these guys and get them to play at their best. So, not he took that job at all. No way. I think it'd be great.
Good to talk to you as always, David. Hopefully we'll see you in New Orleans. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, buddy. Enjoy the auger.
That's David Carr. You can catch him throughout NFL Network's Super Bowl week coverage beginning Monday, February 3rd.